Come on in, guys. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about Survivor's most invisible characters. Yes, those unsung heroes who graciously step out of the limelight so that Russell, or Boston Rob, or Cochran can get their 10th confessional this episode. Finally, my purple friends, your time has come. Yes, today, in celebration of Survivor's most invisible men and women, we'll be counting them down, diving into their games, and hopefully unpacking why they got sidelined so hard along the way. A couple notes. First, there's no perfect measure of someone's visibility in the game. This particular list has been calculated using confessionals per episode, which is, I think, the best metric of how much someone is on screen and involved with the story, but it does have its pitfalls. For one, someone's average can be skewed by a streak of complete invisibility, then a massive spike in confessionals in their boot episode. Additionally, confessional count obviously doesn't account for camp life scenes, so keep that in mind. Finally, before we start counting them down, I've made the executive decision to exclude returning players because I do think a video dedicated to the most invisible returning players would be pretty fun, so I'll cover them separately somewhere down the line. Extra finally, in the case of a tie, the player who lasted longer in the game will be ranked higher. This video will only be the first half of the list, constituting numbers 11 through 6, because 10th place is a tie. That all said, let's dig into Survivor's most invisible players ever. At number 11 is Julia in Survivor Caramoan, with a confessional average of 0.57 per episode. Okay, right off the bat, I feel bad for Julia. It must really suck to not only be invisible on the show, but for your most memorable moment to actually be a confessional from someone else trashing you. Let's just get that out of the way now.
I'm tempted to say that she has like a vanilla personality, but I feel like that would be doing a great disservice to the flavor vanilla. I mean, people actively seek out vanilla-flavored products. Children clamor to get a vanilla ice cream cone. Nobody's clamoring for anything Julia-flavored.
Don't worry, Julia, you're not vanilla. At the very least, you're chocolate chip mint. In the early days of the Goda tribe, if you squint really hard, you can almost tell that Julia's in a solid position. She's in the majority of 6 that forms within the first few episodes, and votes correctly at each tribal council. She's in the loop, although easily one of the least important people narratively on this tribe. Obviously. Her screen time actually cranks up once she's swapped to Bacall from 0 to slightly above 0. Notably, the specialist himself takes a liking to her, I think viewing her as the Natalie Tenorelli to his Boston Rob, an easy win at the final 3. However, Philip's emphatically arguing in favor of eliminating her like 20 minutes later, so I'm actually not sure where he stands here. Julia survives this round after the favorites decide to vote out Matt, but she's voted out the next episode after she sits down for a heart-to-heart with Dawn, the strategic downfall of many a Survivor player. Personally, I don't think Julia was buried in the edit for any particular reason other than she genuinely just was not important to the story being told, wasn't part of any important alliances, and was cursed with being a fan on a fans versus favorite season, which always results in a very lopsided screen time balance. That said, Julia most definitely had the last laugh. I don't recall anyone else from this season getting ranked on Forbes' 30 under 30 list, so good for her. Ultimately, she was doing decently on her tribe, got swap screwed, then got voted out. She made a few strategic blunders along the way, as everyone does. Philip sums up her game nicely, I think.
I wanted her here, I really did. But she's managed to commit several faux pas.
Okay, Philip, that actually is a different thing you're thinking of. At number 10 is Rick in Survivor South Pacific, also with a confessional average of 0.57 per episode. The first of 2 South Pacific alumnus in this countdown, Rick made it all the way to day 37 and the final 5, before getting taken out by his old Upolu allies. Look, there's a guy like Rick almost every season. Old school kind of guy, over 50, solid ally who will stick with his alliance until the bitter end, the ultimate even Steven. Sometimes he goes far, sometimes he goes early, sometimes his bowels get blocked up. But if you're watching this and you get on Survivor, align with this guy. Rick is easily one of my favorite people in this archetype, though, because he had a bit of a mean girl streak that I find endlessly hilarious coming from a Utah rancher with an epic tash. Rick comes up with the Prince Albert nickname for Albert, for example, and I choose to believe that he was well aware of that particular turn of phrase's slang meaning. And listen to him drag Coach.
Coach joins the blue tribe.
I did not want to see Coach's leg bleed blue. It did.
I've never ever seen a dragon slayer, and oh God, there ain't no dragons. My hell, he's in his 40s. Oh God.
Rick's game was pretty solid, too. He positioned himself as a crucial cog in the Upolu machine, close to the power structure of Sophie, Albert, and Coach. As is his archetype's lot in life, he was a bit too loyal, to a fault you might say, and ended up going out in 5th place, in part because he was the weakest physically and strength in challenges was critical to take down Ozzy, and in part because Sophie, Coach, and Albert were like always gonna be the final 3 of Upolu. There's a rumor that Rick was so invisible in the edit because of his thick accent, but I'm not able to verify that or find any sources on it, and I don't find him any more or less intelligible than anyone else on this season. More likely, given that Rick is one of 2 South Pacific players in this top 10, his screen time was cut short to make way for more Coach, Ozzy, Cochran, and Brandon confessionals. Simple as that. Sorry, Rick. If you wanted more screen time, you should have been born a Hans. At number 9 is Zoe in Survivor Marquesas, with a confessional average of 0.56 per episode. Zoe's an anomaly in many, many ways. She's one of 2 pre-All-Stars characters to receive an average of less than 1 confessional per episode, the other being Dara, and also one of the most genuinely bizarre human beings to ever be on this show. Each time Zoe's on screen in Marquesas, she's one-upping her last appearance in weirdness with one constant. She's always flirting with the camera, from her first appearance to her very last. In between, she eats candy out of Jeff's hand, she tells her closest and only ally Tammy she specifically does not like her nor trust her eyes, and she makes friendship bracelets for the new Majority Alliance at the Merge in the most hilariously transparent attempt at currying favor ever. Zoe was in the Rotu 4, the main alliance of the Rotu tribe, and on the business end of one of Survivor's greatest power shifts in history, but honestly, trying to quantify her game is a fool's errand. Does gameplay honestly even matter when you're talking about Zoe? She came out there to work hard and to play hard, and that's exactly what she did. As for why she was so invisible, Survivor learned early on that some people just work better as minor characters in the story. Look, you don't have to try and convince me that Amber or Dara or Zoe are going to win. It's okay for some people to just be sort of aloof people that we see some of the time. And Zoe is the aloofest of the aloof. At number 8 is Liliana in Survivor Fiji, with a confessional average of 0.5 per episode. Liliana's whopping 2 confessionals come in episode 4 of Fiji, where she is eliminated. At the start of Fiji, Liliana was sorted into the Moto tribe, which was a pretty big blessing for her given that this was the Haves tribe in the Haves versus Have-Nots twist. Moto utterly dominated the first few rounds of the game for obvious reasons, using their already well-furnished camp and well-stocked pantry to fuel further reward wins of morale-boosting creature comforts like a French press and a king-size bed. They're enjoying the amenities so much that when they win the Episode 4 Immunity Challenge, they're given the choice to keep immunity but swap camps with Ravu, or keep their camp but vote someone out. So to Tribal they go. As for why Liliana's targeted here, there's a lot in Fiji we didn't get to see, and although I hate going behind the scenes, it really is necessary here. When the castaways were stranded on the island together at the start of the game, 2 major alliances formed. An alliance of shelter builders, generally the older half of the players, and an alliance of island explorers, generally the younger half of the players. Liliana was a key player in the Explorers Alliance, and at pre-swap Moto, the main alliance was Shelter Builders Stacy, Boo, and Lisi, with Explorers Alex and Edgardo in orbit. So when it came time for this tribe to vote off their first tribe member, the Shelter Builders were wary of Liliana, and feared she'd hook back up with the Explorers at a swap or merge, and worried she had the influence to take Alex and Edgardo with her. Of course, we never saw any of these 2 alliances, which had major repercussions for the entire game on the show. So we're just shown that Liliana is flirting with Edgardo, and that's essentially the justification given for her elimination. Liliana is one of the biggest examples of someone who was actually extremely important to the on-island politics, but completely buried in the edit, most likely because her elimination was directly tied to something they opted out of showing at all. At number 7 is Chet in Survivor Micronesia, with a confessional average of 0.5 per episode. Let's give credit where credit's due. Chet was an absolute outcast on the fans tribe, and still managed to get extremely close to the merge, outlast and eliminate all his enemies, and even got a pretty cool coral souvenir to take home. Chet received votes at every tribal council he attended, surviving iRise's 2 initial tribal councils because of Joel's bizarre one-sided rivalry against Mikey B. Now, you might think that working together not once but twice to thwart Mikey and Mary may have formed a sort of mutual respect between Chet and Joel, that despite coming from different walks of life, they can work together and move forward in the game side by side. You'd be wrong.
I don't think I've ever in my life interacted with somebody that is so just spineless.
Clean your coop out later.
It's almost like he's a wet rag or a ball of goo. There's absolutely zero honor whatsoever in keeping somebody like that on our team. I mean, if you went back to medieval times, I think we'd kill him ourselves.
Swap to Malakal with his old buddy Joel. Chet was immediately targeted yet again, but managed to dodge another bullet when Sari worked her magic and convinced the favorites' majority to spare Chet and send old Truck to the scrapyard. Chet ended up asking to be voted out on day 17, having apparently injured his foot 10 days prior, getting a piece of coral lodged in it. We just narrowly miss out on an epic pre-merge Aussie blindside here, as Eric, Tracy, and Amy are all in on blindsiding Aussie and just need Chet to pull it off. Chet puts his foot down though, and instead of being part of an epic blindside on the biggest threat in the game, gets voted out per his request. You, couldn't just quit like 1 second after they blindside Aussie? Chet's weak edit is, I think, punishment for essentially throwing in the towel. Whether justified or not, the show tries to make an example out of Chet, drawing comparisons between his slightly swollen foot and him basically giving up and leaving his allies in a lurch, to Jonathan Penner desperately pleading to stay in the game, despite having, like, a massive open wound on his leg. Even still, Chet's a fun presence on Micronesia and easily in the upper echelon of either fans tribe, although that's not saying much. At number 6 is JP in Survivor Heroes vs. Healers vs. Hustlers, our last player with a confessional average of 0.5 per episode, and the one who went the furthest. JP started on the Heroes tribe, ultimately navigating the game at Chrissy and Ryan's side as a solid number, until his inevitable post-merge blindside. JP peaked very early in the game, when Alan accused JP and Ashley of being a power couple on night 2, and having an immunity idol, to which JP completely stripped down to the nude to prove his innocence in the ultimate power move. That actually is my response to conflict as well. JP bumbled his way to the swap, where his main alliance of Chrissy and Ryan took shape, as he joined them in eliminating both Rourke and Allie, a crime which can never be forgiven. At the merge, JP was pretty clearly along for the ride, joining the larger anti-healer alliance and picking off Jessica, Desi, and Cole. After most of the healers were gone, the tribe at large turned against the Chrissy, Ryan, JP threesome and blindsided JP for his clear challenge prowess. Look, it's pretty clear why JP wasn't given a ton of screen time. He's just not that great a confessional giver.
The other night at Tribal, Ash and I got called out as the power couple. That label sucks. I don't see ourselves as a power couple at all. We're not dating, we're not hooking up, we're not doing any of that type of stuff. I mean, if we're a power couple, I mean, might as well be hooking up and being a couple, you know what I mean? Might as well take advantage of everything.
JP is an incredibly fun under-the-radar character, though, when we get to see him, and he seems like a really nice dude, which actually makes me feel bad saying that he almost seems blissfully unaware that he's even playing a game. His only real strategic insight the entire season is Girl Alliance bad.
Rourke wants to do an all-girls alliance.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, she's gotta go.
He's only out here to flirt with Ashley and talk about steaks, which makes it all the more impressive he lasted to the mid-merge and things like that. Got nothing else for you. We'll resume the list next week with the top 5, but if you want to stick with me like Coral lodged in Chet's foot, like and subscribe and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.